Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound with you, and thank you for joining me for another one of my spirit review videos. In today's video we're going to be doing quite the mix-up than what we usually do. First, I'm actually going to only nose and taste 2 bottles for you, so it should shorten the length of this video. And secondly, I'm actually going to be nosing and tasting 2 different spirit types. I'm going to start with the vodka and with the bourbon. They're both from the same distillery. We're talking the Breckenridge Distillery there in Colorado. And lately, that distillery, because of this bourbon, has been getting a ton of notoriety. And we're going to talk the awards, and we're going to nose and taste it in just a second. Now, part 2 of this video, I'm going to expand a little bit further on the spirit oxidation that I talked about in my glassware corks and spirit oxidation video. Now, in that video, I show you this private preserve can that I like to use, this little aerosol can that you can use to spray your bottles really quick, put your corks on, and store them on your shelves. But I do have a bigger system, and a friend of mine was asking me, why didn't you show your bigger system? And I was like, well, I don't know, it's kind of big, you know, it's on the table, I don't know if it's really going to help anybody. He's like, you never know. And I thought about it, and I was like, you're absolutely right. You know, I don't know what your collection is out there. I don't even know if, maybe you don't have a huge collection, but you take your spirit preservation very seriously, in which case this would be for you. It's just a big supersized version of that can. And I'm going to show you all the little parts that you need to get this exact setup in your home. And hopefully that can help some of you out there. Alright, back to the spirits. So, Breckenridge Vodka, let's talk about that one first. It's a 5-time distillation, uses grain as the base. What else? They use snow melt water. They like to advertise that they use snow melt. What happens is the water coming from the snow comes down the mountain, enters the Blue River, and that is their water source. They use charcoal filtration on this one, alright? So let's get to the nosing. Wow. Sweet, sweet grain. That's what you get. A lot of vanilla in this one. I don't get any really rubbing alcohol. I can smell just a hint of ethanol in there, but it's not giving me that rubbing alcohol feel. I mean, I can sit there and take a big inhalation. It's not hurting my nose at all. But as far as the actual aromas, there's a hint of citrus in the background. It reminds me of kind of like a lemon zest. But the big player is the vanilla and the grain. Alright, on to the tasting. I always like to give my descriptions right after my second taste. That first one's kind of throwing everybody in gear. But as it enters, it is very creamy and soft. A lot of vanilla, a lot of sweet grain. When I say sweet grain, then this combination of vanilla, it kind of reminds me of cream of wheat when you're talking this grain and vanilla and this little bit of malty feel to it. There is a warmth to it. It builds up mid-palate, and it builds up right on the tongue. It doesn't go into the throat or the stomach, so that's a good thing. And no matter how much I breathe out my nose, because that's a really fine way of finding rubbing alcohol, that aroma in vodkas when they're not of the best quality. But in this one, no matter how much I do that, I'm not finding rubbing alcohol. I am getting a little bit of the ethanol, a little bit of the alcohol feel, but it's not rubbing alcohol, so that's a good thing. Very full of flavor and a fairly decent finish. I would not call this one necessarily a clean vodka. It's a very flavorful vodka. So if you like to sip something neat, then this would be a star player for you. It has a lot of vanilla and a lot of just nice grain flavor, and it's just, I can imagine it would mix perfectly fine in a martini. But if you like your vodka straight up in a shot, or maybe you just like to just sip on them, then this would be a very, very good choice. As far as American vodkas go, it is very high up there in my ranking. I actually, it's definitely, I think I would so far put this in the top 3 of all the American vodkas that I've had. And that's pretty high praise for this guy. Even now on my palate, I'm still tasting the grain and vanilla, so those things are huge in this one. Anyway, It only like about $30 a bottle. Definitely worth having or adding to your collection. Now, on to the bourbon. This bourbon has been winning a lot of awards. Let's talk 2011 at the International Wine and Spirits Competition, it got a gold medal. That same year at the International Whiskey Competition, it was named the best bourbon. Let's see, 2012, here was the big one. In 2012, at the Ultimate Spirits Challenge, it received 96 points and was named a Chairman's Trophy finalist. Now, 96 points is huge in that Pappy Van Winkle, 23-year-old, was at that exact same competition and only received 95 points. That's almost insane. But we're going to see how it really does compare. Well, not directly. I don't have the Pappy out. But I'm going to give you my impression of it, and we'll go from there. The thing that you need to know about this bourbon is that it's only about a 2 to 3 year old age on it. They use barrels that are number 3 char, pretty medium heavy char. The number 3 just means how many times it was fired up on the inside. What else do we need to know? Oh, mash bill. 51% corn, about 35-36% rye, 9 to 10% barley. So I'm expecting that rye to give it a lot of cinnamon spices, keep it a little more lively on the palate. I just hope it's not going to be too harsh. So let's go ahead and get to the color. I've been leaving that there so hopefully you can see it. The color, fairly nice. A little bit of on the bronze yellow scale. On the nose, wow. No alcohol burning me down. Cedar, eucalyptus, sweet vanilla, perfect amount of oak, caramel, raspberries, strawberries, and a little bit of dark cherry in there as well. Very impressive on the nose. I mean, that's a lot for a very young bourbon. Alright, so very impressive. Let's go ahead and get to the tasting. That cinnamon spice kicks up mid-palate, but it's kind of neat how it just ramps up and then immediately starts to fade. Not the cinnamon stays, the flavor stays. It's that warmth that doesn't keep rising. As far as the initial entry, I'm not going to call it oily. It's fairly silky. The caramel, the oak, the vanilla, the cinnamon are right up front. The raspberries, almost a red apple in there as well. And the cherry note are kind of just behind those initial flavors. I like the way the oak is playing in here. It's definitely a big oak flavor, but it's not overly bitter like a black tea would be, or very tannic in that sense that it's not drying it out tremendously. A lot of times when you get that much oak, it's going to start drying out on the palate, and not this one so much. As far as overall, very impressed with the flavors. I'm not sure if I would have scored it over Pappy 23. I have Pappy 23. I think it's tremendous. What separates the two in my book, and you could even throw in Pappy 15 because that's excellent as well. What separates these two, while it has tremendous amount of flavors and tremendous complexity, it is a touch lacking just on the mouthfeel in my book. I think if you were to give this one the mouthfeel like the Pappy has, it would definitely beat Pappy 23. It's that strong of a player on the flavor. I reassure myself. Yeah. I love the cedar. I love the eucalyptus mint coming in behind that vanilla and that oak and the caramel, and the fruits are in there as well. It's a lovely, lovely bourbon. They're doing great things there in Breckenridge Distillery. I think they're going to be putting out a rum soon, so I'm actually looking forward to finding that one on my shelves. So keep an eye out. Again, both of these are definitely worth adding to your collection. Highly praised and probably deserve it. So, part 2, my little tank. The way I did this setup, is you just go to a nice welding supply shop. Try not to go to one that's looks a little too shady. You want to make sure they're testing their tanks, because this thing is 2,000 pounds of pressure. So you got to be careful and make sure you're using good tanks. The second thing you have to have is a regulator. So those little gauges right there, that's on the side. The reason is because at 2,000 pounds of pressure, you don't just open this up and put it in your bottle. It's way too much gas. So the way this works, well, let me finish the parts. So after the regulator, you have to go get a little bib. So just take your regulator, go to like a hose shop. They have specialty shops that do nothing but hose and fittings, and ask for a barb to fit in there. That's what I did. In the barb, it's just like a little nozzle where this little 3/8 inch hose fits right over it. This is food grade tubing, so it's non-toxic, touches the spirits, no worries. At the end of this, now I went ahead and got a T. So this thing initially was about, a little T fitting, 2 little exits. And what I ended up doing was cutting those off. And then once I cut those off, so then I had the 2, one on each side, little hole. Then I drilled one straight through the top. So now I've got essentially 4 holes in it with a bottom floor. So as I insert this into my bottle, turn the gas on, open the regulator, it starts to let the gas out. The gas comes out the tube, hits the bottom of this little fitting, and kind of disperses in 4 different directions, and I fill my bottle that way. Now, a lot of people get into the big, and this thing is ad nauseum, the discussions that go on about the differences between argon and nitrogen. My feeling is either one will work. I chose argon because it is a heavier gas, and then you can go into those forums again and get chewed out for, well, it is a heavier gas, but if that's true, we'd be suffocating here on Earth. I read that, and that was insane. We have climate, we have atmospheric conditions and thermal updrafts that help keep us from suffocating on those gases. But if you have a heavy gas, you put it in a sealed container, eventually, I feel like they would settle out, and the heavier gas is going to lay on the bottom. Now, that's why I chose argon. I fill my bottles up. The way it works, real quick, you make sure your regulator is all the way out, so it's not going to let any gas out. You open up your tank. The gauge is going to pop to 2,000 pounds of pressure. It's going to show the pressure, and then you begin to turn your nozzle, your little regulator, until it starts to let the gas out at around 2 to 3 pounds of pressure. No more than 5. 5 is the most you're going to need, and then it just starts flowing out, and you'll hear it. Put it in your bottle, let it sit in there for a little bit, and then just slowly withdraw, put your cork on, you're done. Release the pressure so it's not spraying out, get your next bottle, so on. And that's it. Once you're done, back your regulator all the way out to where it's not letting out any gas, turn off your big tank, and then I like to open it up, and usually I'll do one more bottle. So my last bottle, the tank's closed, then I let the gas out the regulator, and it's just bleeding off that pressure that was in that line, and I can do one last little bottle. And it bleeds all that pressure off, and then I'm done. So no more pressure on the regulator. You don't want to leave that pressure on there. And that's all there is to having one of those tanks. The tank itself, let's talk price. Tank itself can run anywhere around $150. I think it was right in there. That's filled with argon. A refill of argon, my understanding, is about $30. A refill of nitrogen is only like $15. The regulator usually runs around $60, $75, somewhere in there. The little bib usually runs $3. The T ran me like $5. The food grade tubing, surprisingly, was like $3.25 a foot. So, and that's it. That's all really you need. Oh, one little hose clamp right at the top. Sorry about that. Keep doing that. The bottom one doesn't need a hose clamp. Fits in there very securely. You don't need that hose clamp to be busting all your bottles. And that system right there can fit in every one of my bottles. Even the very, very slim open ones like the Porfirio Barrique. It's very, very tiny, but that one works. So anyway, thank you for joining me. I hope that's some information that you can use. Everybody have a great evening, and cheers.